Welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news, and it's 8 p.m. Tuesday, May 17th, 2022, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the partnership between Happening Out Television Network and Hotspots Magazine. Hotspots is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ plus experience. We bring you the best of LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson. Let's welcome anchor Sobourney Barnes, a true South Florida native, born right here and raised in Broward County to parents who found joy in public service. A graduate of Florida Atlantic University for her bachelor's and Florida International University for her master's, Sobourney has been an advocate for LGBTQIA plus youth for almost a decade. Welcome, Sobourney.
Thank you, Al. I missed you last week, I'm not gonna lie. Now it's time to welcome anchor John Hayden. John's been a journalist for 27 years and now works for several South Florida outlets, including South Florida Gay News, covering arts, politics, and philanthropic organizations. He spent the majority of his career covering the stupidity and scandals of Hollywood and has interviewed nearly every big name in TV, movies, and music. Welcome, John.
Thank you so much. Stupidity and scandal. You don't have to go to Hollywood to find it, trust me.
I mean, you can go to Hollywood before, duh.
Whoa.
Speaking of Hollywood, let's welcome anchor Jeff Oliverio.
Wow.
He is he's got Hollywood hair. He has got Hollywood
like
looks hair, and I'm loving every moment of it. He is a founding member and treasurer of the
Hollywood
LGBTQ plus Council, a unique civic community organization designed to unite the LGBTQ plus community in Greater Hollywood. The council recently hosted the inaugural My Hollywood Pride, which was so fun. He is also chair for the 2022 National LGBTQ plus Task Force Gala being held in October in Miami Beach. Good evening, Jeff.
Well, it's great to be back and to be roasted right away. So happy to be here.
It's called shade.
Yes. And hope you all will come back out in Hollywood. We're going to have a Pride event on June 1st, just some downtown Hollywood fun with some of the restaurants and just a social event. So I hope everyone will come out and support the businesses in Hollywood. Let's welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro, an inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 8 books, including his latest, Fear of Muses, an entertainment journalist whose celebrity interviews and music reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ+ and mainstream publications and websites. His movie review column, called Screensaver, can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco's Bay Area Reporter, RottenTomatoes.com, and more. Good evening, Gregg.
And happy National Pack Rat Day. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight. And this evening, we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Tuesday, May 17th, which is also International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia.
All the phobias.
Well, let's begin by querying up business. A new report shows that the cost to businesses bottom line without LGBTQ plus inclusion. A new article in Forbes explores and shows that businesses not supporting their LGBTQ plus employees can cost them money. This analysis takes both LGBTQ plus in and out of the closet into consideration. People who are out of the closet in a business without LGBTQ plus support will frequently have to spend time educating their coworkers or being asked inappropriate questions. Those who were unable to come out will have to spend time masking their personal lives. The creator of the article at Forbes estimated that LGBTQ plus employees in businesses without a support system spend about 65 work hours a year dealing with their sexuality in the workplace. If you were to use the Queer News Tonight methodology of standard of 7% of population being LGBTQ plus or in our community, that means a business with 100 employees is wasting 6,500 hours of pay a year by not supporting their LGBTQ plus employees. Even at the U.S. minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, that's over $47,000 a year wasted in wages. In companies with higher pay scales and larger labor forces, that number rises exponentially. Interesting report.
It's interesting, and it's also sad to see just how much time is wasted talking about sexuality, or more so for folks in the queer community, I'm assuming having to explain what it is to be LGBT to their heterosexual peers. Like 65 hours.
Well, I serve on one of the Pride committees for a large regional bank, and one of the things that, big corporations have is they have these diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. One of the things we started with the Hollywood Council is a program called Circle of Pride, which is really for small businesses who maybe want to be welcoming, and just to give them some basic tactics to make sure that their employees, if they want to be welcoming or supportive of LGBTQ plus employees and customers, that they have some just basic tenets to show that, because that's where the real loss is in small businesses, because they don't have these big programs to help support the community.
I love that. That sounds
Well, we aren't all lucky enough to work at a table where everybody's gay and there's no explanation necessary. I mean,
that's right.
We are really lucky.
I used to work for this guy. God, he was an absolute jerk. He ran a restaurant in Indianapolis, and I was allegedly, and this is the mid-'90s, I was allegedly the first gay waiter he had ever had, and he nicknamed me the Tulip.
The Tulip.
I am not joking. His name was Keith Albrecht, because as I say, I forgive, but I don't forget, and you're still a jerk. But that said, 65 hours a year spent dealing with your sexuality at work. I mean, I work from home. And trust me, I spend 65 hours a year dealing with my sexuality by myself. But in real out in the workplace forces, that's detrimental to people.
I don't even want to know how at home you're working on that individual sexuality question. It's funny. Statistically, a couple of things pop off the page. Forbes is estimating in this report that if you're working in a business that doesn't have inclusion in their business program, that you're spending a week and a half of your year discussing your sexuality. I would much rather have my week and a half back as vacation pay. Let me go on vacation and go to Mykonos for the week and a half, as opposed to talking about something that is irrelevant. And second, this is an issue that is much more amplified in LGBT, because can you imagine in even small businesses having to explain your race or your gender for women, or in various different implementations? This is a very unique issue of waste because of gender identity issues, which is why this report that Forbes does is so interesting and also so important, in my opinion.
I think that that intersectionality is really a big deal, because people are not just dealing with their sexual identity issues; they could be dealing with race plus that in the workplace. So you start layering those things on, and you can really see, which is why we need to pass the Equality Act, so we don't, so people are protected in the workplace.
Let's move to Tulip. Go ahead, Tulip.
wow. Think of that. Straight.
This is why I'm on medication
You're wearing
for PTSD.
You're wearing
This is
red.
why.
You're in red. Yeah.
It's so gorgeous.
But we move on and we queer up education. Homework assignment requires students to explain how they would de-gay their friends. In Florida, we have Don't Say Gay. In Kentucky, they're saying gay in all the wrong ways. Recently, the Christian Academy of Louisville issued a homework assignment to its middle schoolers asking for students to write a letter to a friend of theirs who is gay. The goal of the letter was, quote, in at least 8 sentences, try to show the friend from the Bible, reason, and your personal friendship that God's design for them is good, that homosexuality will not bring them satisfaction, that you love them even though you don't approve of their lifestyle, end quote. Ironically, the Christian Academy school system claims to be inclusive, and their diversity statement reads, quote, Christian Academy opposes all forms of racism and prejudice that may cause anyone to feel undervalued and unworthy of human dignity. We pledge to intervene if we see moments in our classrooms, meetings, conferences, discussion boards, or students' work that may threaten and or harm through stereotyping or silencing fellow image bearers. Watch this.
The instructions to middle school students to, quote, try to show the friend from the Bible, reason, and your personal friendship that God's design for them is good, that homosexuality will not bring them satisfaction, that you love them even though you don't approve of their lifestyles. JP Davis, a local business owner, posted it after a friend sent it to him.
Their child is in this class at Cal, and I'm one of the few out gay men that she owns, so understandably so, she calls me and says, what do I do? I don't know how to, I don't agree with this.
Once posted, that assignment garnered backlash on social media. Davis says it also gave others a space to share their own stories.
I've received dozens of messages from alumni of Cal thanking me and telling me their stories of trauma. Some of them are really emotionally upsetting.
In a statement, Cal Superintendent Darren Long says in part, quote, this particular assignment in context was how a person could discuss homosexuality with a friend from a biblical perspective with compassion and love. They also add they will, quote, review this assignment to ensure there is clarity in its purpose and language. But Fairness Campaign Executive Director Chris Hartman believes the purpose is clear.
This is just a precursor to what we're going to start seeing come out of charter schools that the Kentucky General Assembly just funded. Taxpayer dollars will be paying for assignments like these that promote outright discrimination, that seek to turn kids into conversion therapists against other kids, which we know is what increases the incidence of suicide amongst LGBTQ kids, depression, self-harm, isolation.
And at the end of the day, everybody wants to belong. Everybody wants to belong. And I don't know why we can't all just agree to that. And I think Cal can be a Christian school without teaching hate.
Yeah, but can they though? I mean, this was funded by taxpayer dollars, and let's be honest, this is what they want in public schools. They want this gay to be okay to be said in public schools, and it is just now overtly saying gay is lesser, and it makes me so angry.
And is it surprising this is coming from the land of Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul and Kim Davis? It's not surprising that it's coming from there, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not surprising at all, and then it's even more upsetting because they're claiming that we, the queer community, are trying to indoctrinate kids and make them gay. I'm like, what are you all doing by preaching this to middle schoolers? Like, in middle school, you're already going through so much. You're at a higher rate for bullying, and your body is changing, so you're going through puberty. I'm like, really? You're gonna add this to them? And you're at a Christian academy teaching compassion and love.
It's just groomers grooming is what it is.
Yeah, and it said, like, explain to them how you don't agree with their lifestyle. Do you know what the average lifestyle is for 8th graders? They're almost all the same.
Exactly.
It's try not to look stupid, try to pass the class. I mean, God, yeah.
I mean, I'm a parent of a middle schooler, so I can speak on behalf of middle schoolers. It's somewhat the idea that you're going to tell a middle schooler, even at this age, and they're so advanced, even beyond what I can remember being a middle schooler, they can see right through this. And I think that this type of indoctrination into even middle schoolers is going to have a heavy backlash that's only going to come back to give more support to LGBTQ.
They cannot
because
win
they
this
can't
issue.
win.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
They cannot win this issue. I think it's interesting that their positioning is homosexuality will not bring you satisfaction. I'm here to tell you for 50 some years, homosexuality has brought me lots of satisfaction. So you can't win. You cannot change evolutionary nature. One other thing actually two other things I want to say. Congratulations to CBS's and Louisville's CBS WLKY. It's brave for that local CBS affiliate to take on a story like this. It's Louisville, after all. That's a big, huge metropolitan city, but still, in the conservative nature, especially of a religious Christian academy in Louisville, brave of you to tell a story like this. We applaud you for bringing it to America's attention, because now we're paying attention to it. And separate, a religious school trying to have their own students continue the voice of indoctrination. Can't you imagine in 1939 in Berlin, in a Christian school, let's do a homework assignment to try to convert that religion to our religion. Oh wait, let's not even do that. Let's shortcut it. Just
a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Like every time you mention it, it's like that slippery slope. Like moving forward onto something sad, but also just amazing and legendary. It's time to queer up LGBTQ plus civil rights. And folks, iconic LGBTQ plus activist Urvashi Vaid was memorialized. Urvashi Vaid was an iconic activist born in 1958 in New Delhi, India. She moved to the US as a child when her father became a university professor. She started her life as an activist early, participating in anti-Vietnam protests at age 11. She was the president of Vaid Group, a group that works with social justice innovators, movements, and organizations to address inequalities based on sexual orientation, gender identity, race, and economic status. She also founded LPAC, the Lesbian Super PAC, and for more than 10 years worked at the National LGBTQ Task Force. She published multiple books and won many awards for her writing and activism. She is survived by her partner, comedian Kate Clinton. What an amazing life and what an inspirational person. She will definitely be missed.
Her 1996 book, Virtual Equality, is a must.
It's a must
Everybody should
read.
read it. Absolutely.
Absolutely is.
And our hearts go out to Kate.
Yeah.
I know that it was a big loss to many people from the task force. I did not know her personally, but I know she left a huge mark on not only the task force, but of course the LGBTQ plus community. So our condolences.
And far too young, 58 years old. You know, just far too young. I echo your comments about the book. If you haven't read it, you should read the book. It will change a lot of your thinking about activism. And she always had me, when she formed anything that's called a lesbian super PAC, I'm all in. I'm just all in.
I feel like Faye would be part of that.
I thought Faye was.
Lesbian is a lesbian super PAC.
She's her own super PAC.
Right.
Now let's queer up the USA view. Illinois historic new legislation aimed at protecting LGBTQ plus seniors. Yesterday was Honor Your LGBTQ plus Elders Day. It might be that day here today.
Oh.
And Illinois took to heart as SB.
Got it. Well played, sir.
As SB 3490 was signed by Governor Pritzker. The bill was an amendment to the existing Illinois Act on Aging and offered specific protections and services to older LGBTQ plus adults. Of the bill, Governor Pritzker said, quote, "These elder adults are trailblazers in the fight for LGBTQ plus rights, growing up in a more hostile time where basic rights were regularly denied based on gender and sexuality. This amendment to the Illinois Act on Aging honors that struggle by ensuring all people can age in dignity with equal access to essential care and social supports," end quote. That sounds fabulous. Everyone should age with all of those things, and I really tip my hat to Governor Pritzker for doing this in a state that is not so easy to give LGBTQ plus support.
You know, this is the meaning of pro-life. This is pro-life.
Absolutely.
Womb to grave. This is taking care of people when it's harder for them to take care of themselves, and I think this is wonderful.
Yeah.
Bravo, J.B. Pritzker, one of the few Illinois governors not in prison.
Still early.
And
Still early.
then, you know,
nice.
and he comes from, hey, I was born in Chicago. So
I'm just going to clutch my purpose.
He's got better lawyers.
Yeah, and he comes from a legendary family of philanthropists, and let's not forget that his cousin Jennifer is also trans, so that may play a part in his decision making.
You know, it's an interesting topic that I think is important for the LGBTQ community for a couple of reasons. First, There's a national organization called SAGE. And if you're not familiar with them, you should look it up. And SAGE is our LGBTQ organization that is specifically designed to help propel the visibility of the senior community, older community, and LGBT. And it specifically zeroes in on all of the specific and very, very specific needs that seniors and LGBT have. It's a completely different experience than other seniors, and really completely different experience than younger LGBT. And second, here's why this story, in my opinion, is so important. We live in Wilton Manors in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. A lot of people do not realize that Broward County is becoming the first, not Palm Springs, not P-Town, not West Hollywood, Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors, being the heart of that, is becoming and will become the first LGBTQ retirement community in America. The number of retirees that move to Broward County every year is breathtaking in its growth. It's why Wilton Manors is so successful, a model that is very difficult to replace. That's why Chicago can't do it. That's why Greenwich Village and Hell's Kitchen can't do it anymore. It's because older retired money is driving Broward County, and it leads to stability. However, it brings on a whole set of new issues, and Florida is the retirement capital of this planet, and they're learning it. The villages, for example, we're learning the important needs of seniors in so many different ways in Florida, and Broward County will be the first place in the world to do it for LGBT. Pay attention, because it is a trend that is here and is coming like a tidal wave. And that's good for everyone, especially the LGBTQ seniors.
We're here, we're queer, get used to it,
That's
folks.
right.
Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine and supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ+ religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
I'm Auntie Mame, South Florida's black, bearded drag mama, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
I want their way.
Love her too. Well, we're going to finish tonight's queer news headlines with a segment that we call LGBTQ+ Flash News.
LGBTQ+ Flash News. New book celebrates legends of drag. In an age when everything revolves around RuPaul's Drag Race, people who actually know about drag history are rarer than the Loch Ness Monster. That's why performing artist Harry James Hansen and writer Devin Antheus joined together to create Legends of Drag, Queens of a Certain Age. The hardcover book features over 80 veteran queens. Yes, some of them may in fact be over 80 as well, and includes portraits and pearls of wisdom from the pioneers of modern drag. Hansen and Antheus included queens who were part of some of the most iconic moments in LGBTQ+ history. And they commented, quote, "We hope the book piques interest in the many revolutionary groups and traditions of which our models have been members and participants. The Gay Liberation Front, Queer Nation, ACT UP, the Cockettes, Radical Fairies, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence." I think this is a trend because there's also a book called 7 Generations of Glamour, A History of Milwaukee Drag, from Michael Takash and BJ Daniels, also being published. So looks like this is a new trend.
Well, I think knowing your LGBTQ history, the drag movement obviously was what started the Stonewall, part of the Stonewall riots, and drag queens being a huge part of that. So I think this is another way to honor that history and making sure our community is aware of that.
I love the observation you just made. And you think about in the 1960s, leading up to the Stonewall riots at the Stonewall Inn, drag queens' presence. Now, beyond the launch of the riot, think about the bravery of being a drag queen performing in secretive bars in the 1960s. I want to know those kind of people, and this book is a great opportunity for me to learn more about it.
Yes, yes, I concur. I love anything history related, and the fact that this has been created, I cannot wait to sink my teeth into it. It's going to be a good read.
It's our history to tell, and it's our responsibility to tell it, because nobody else is and nobody else will.
Yeah.
There you go.
And in LGBTQ plus flash news, Marvel introduces new trans mutant. This is so awesome. The X-Men were created at the height of the civil rights movement as a way to tell the stories of repressed and underrepresented individuals in tales that could be entertaining to everyone. That history of turning society's scapegoats and downtrodden into superheroes continues with Marvel's Voices, Pride #1. The sequel to last year's Pride anthology graphic novel. This year, we're introduced to a new trans mutant named Escapade. She has the power to switch with others, be it trading locations with someone or trade any specific or physical attribute such as possessions, organizational status, skills, superhuman powers, and even situations. Escapade will be traveling with her best friend, Morgan Red, also a mutant. Escapade will be appearing again later this year with the X-Men in a New Mutants storyline. And I think this is so awesome, and if I could have had her trade organizational skills with a couple of my ex-boyfriends, I'd probably still be dating someone.
Wow.
I wonder if she'll be using Janet Jackson's Escapade as her theme song.
Actually, again, as everyone knows at the table, I'm not a huge Marvel fan, but all I had in my head was Escapade from Janet Jackson. And now you've taken my comment right out of my mouth. But I love this storyline. I love representation in the comic books, and I'm for it.
You know, as I read this story from Marvel's announcement, I realized, well, times are really tough for LGBT in America and in Florida right now. This is how we win, because big corporate entities like Marvel will begin to just standardize representation. And the Tucker Carlsons and the X's and the Y's, they can't stand up to the implementation of how this changes young viewpoint.
Absolutely.
Can't stand up to it.
Oh. And as a Marvel fan, a huge Marvel fan, especially of X-Men, I think this is amazing. And just like you said, this is where the younger generation are going to be able to start to see, hey, there's representation.
Okay.
Here's me. It's fine. I love being queer. So I'm here for it. And continuing with LGBTQ plus flash news, Indiana high school drag queen is crowned prom queen. Watch this. King. See, I messed up.
2022 Prom King is Kristen.
So with all of the egg on my face, I'm going to again proudly state a prom queen was made an Indiana high school prom king. So folks, don't be a drag, just be a queen or a king who's a queen, like Christian Hernandez from Jefferson High School in Indiana. Hernandez, who is 18 and non-binary, said they took 5 hours getting ready for the event, which, sis, I feel you. This face, an hour alone. The TikTok video of the crowning is captioned, quote, "King, queen, whatever you want to call it, I'm still that bitch," end quote, which all of the superstar power right there. The win is especially impactful considering the conservative nature of Indiana residents. Jefferson's population is about 80% white, and 50% of the adults voted Republican in the 2020 election. I'm not surprised. But you know what? This is amazing, and this is a big win for the youngsters there. And also, I think it's a little bit of an FU to the adults, but just for folks who don't know, big heads up, you may not always want to be gay in Indiana.
I mean, I didn't want to be gay in Indiana, and that's why I moved. But I do know that Jefferson High School is just across the river from Louisville. The story, and so it's just, and it's even redder than Louisville, this area. So it's totally not on brand, but it makes me very happy to see this story.
I bet Mary Pence would have wanted to have been prom queen.
I was just going to say mothers, curlers must be up in a bunch over this, but I really love this story. I love seeing, again, what the theme tonight is really talking about, that we can't silence the youth, and the youth are going to bring us through this difficult time.
The highest compliment that I can make to the video, the TikTok that I just watched, is to say the name Christian Hernandez. A little experience with RuPaul, and you sashayed absolutely wonderfully. And there is no consequence of this. There's no downside to this. Whether it's done tongue-in-cheek, whether it's your authenticity, it makes no difference at all. And congratulations to the students that supported it. The world can change, and in very positive ways. And I just watched it in TikTok. Christian Hernandez. Well, next, let's queer up Flash News and talk about Ellen DeGeneres' Tearful final show. It's been filmed, and it's going to air May 26. Ellen, the iconic talk show powerhouse who brought a friendly lesbian face to Middle America and the world, has filmed the final episode yesterday. Ellen's show was one of the most popular talk shows on television for several years, until pandemic took its toll. While during pandemic, it came out that many members of her staff were not getting paid, and that while the star's brand was being nice, it was alleged she often was the opposite. Despite all of that, it is undeniable that in the 19 years her show was on the air, she changed the world for many. The final episode of the Ellen DeGeneres Show airs on May 26th. I have seen at least five revolutionary moments about the LGBTQ community on Ellen. And she did it long before it became the rage to be able to say the things that Ellen DeGeneres did right from the very beginning.
Exactly. Not taking into account all of what we learned recently about behind the scenes, just what she brought for our community, what she did. I'm still in awe of what she did in the 90s on her own show. Just thank you, and we're gonna miss you.
I remember when the Ellen Show did the whole "I'm gay" into the airport microphone, and critics said, this is terrible, it's gonna lead to more gays on TV, and it's gonna lead to normalization. And you know what? They were right.
They were right. That's awesome.
Yep, she's still gay, and she cries real tears.
Yeah, I think it's amazing to think back that the iconic host we had before her was Rosie O'Donnell, who could not live her life in the spotlight the way that Ellen was able to at least bring normalcy to being in a lesbian relationship that unfortunately Rosie didn't really have when she was in the spotlight. So whether she treated her employees bad or not, which I hope she didn't, but if she did, on you, I'm glad that her representation was on television.
There we go.
So, LGBTQ plus flash news. History as Cuba becomes first Latin American country to officially celebrate LGBTQ plus History Month. I did not make a typo there. Cuba. In a time where America is reverting to the 50s when it comes to equality, it seems only fitting that the strange time warp that is our world put Cuba, the country that was stuck in the 50s for decades, and in many ways still is, at the front of the LGBTQ plus acceptance. While Argentina won this race to same-sex marriage in Latin America when it was legalized in 2010, a right still not afforded to Cubans, the communist country has chosen to officially recognize June as LGBTQ plus Pride Month. This is a first in South or Central America or the Caribbean. Again, whatever progress there is, cheers to that. Obviously, Cuba has a lot of problems and and obviously, I think we've all covered the stories here about, the issues with our community there and not being safe. But if they're going to honor our month, I'm happy to see it.
I've helped bring thousands of LGBT Americans to Cuba, and I'm very proud that I have done that. I have attended Havana's Pride, and I was very proud to do that. And I posted on this news of their recognition to all of the Cuban people haters, especially here in South Florida, that you can't cheer for Cuban people and the dignity of the Cuban people and also not recognize when milestones are achieved. And that's what this is, because it's good for the Cuban people. And for once, I'm not talking about politics.
There you go. No, I think it's amazing. And as someone who is of Caribbean descent, I always applaud when I see Caribbean nations that are coming forward and starting to accept the queer community. So kudos to you all for that.
That we all know Cuba and Havana have a terrible record on human rights, but gay rights are human rights. So if they're making progress in any area, that's to be encouraged.
And, sorry.
Viva Cuba!
I'm sorry, my love, I interrupted you. But it is that time, folks. That is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
You know it is, so help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates and share the news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
And if our community is to grow, we must tell these type of stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these type of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. And that is the passion of the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Sobourney Barnes, John Hayden, Jeff Oliverio, and Gregg Shapiro, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we end our show for the evening, we have a very important special report. Let us queer up the big interview. Lesbian Representative Michele Rayner quits her congressional bid over DeSantis' alleged gerrymandering. Florida Democrat Michele Rayner Goolsby, who would have been Florida's first out U.S. representative, suspended her campaign for Congress yesterday. She appears to be one of the victims of Governor Ron DeSantis' heavy hand in Florida's redistricting process. Rayner will now seek re-election to her seat in the Florida House of Representatives. Rayner was one of America's strongest voices in opposition to Florida's Don't Say Gay initiative and many other LGBTQ plus issues. Here was her announcement. Watch this.
Hi, everyone. This is State Representative Michele Rayner. As many of you know, about a year ago, we launched a campaign for Congress right here in Pinellas County. It has been the joy of mine and Bianca's life to be able to talk to neighbors throughout the county, talk to community members, and find out what's really important to them. It's been a special joy for me because I grew up here right in Clearwater. But as many of you know, we have a governor and we have a legislature that is out of control. They have drawn maps that are racist, that are partisan, and that I believe, and quite frankly, many people believe, are illegal. And that's what makes it difficult to have a free and fair election in Pinellas County for this congressional seat. So friends, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take our fight back to Tallahassee. Many of you know that I've recently been called Ron DeSantis' worst nightmare. And I'm his worst nightmare because I speak truth to power, I hold him accountable, and I fight for the people. And that's what I'm going to continue to do in the State House. So friends, we're going back to the State House. I hope to earn your support. I hope that you'll get involved because this election is the most vital election of our lifetime. Thanks so much for your unending support and your encouragement. I'm so grateful for this journey. Let's continue on.
It's a trifecta you just watched: black, woman, queer. Rayner was to the point on her belief that Governor DeSantis, running for re-election in November and one of the top GOP presidential candidates floated for the 2024, is homophobic, racist, and partisan to win an election to the point of being illegal. Of great significance, Rayner was a leading candidate for this U.S. congressional seat of Charlie Crist, who is running for governor against Ron DeSantis. Joe Biden won Crist's district by 4 percentage points, even though former President Donald Trump won Florida. DeSantis vetoed a map drawn by the Florida legislature, and then pressured lawmakers to pass a map his staff drew up. That changed Crist's seat from a Biden district to one Trump won by 7 percentage points. This then split Rayner's home base in St. Petersburg into 2 districts. The black community in St. Petersburg is split under the new map. A Florida judge has ruled that DeSantis's map was to be thrown out as unconstitutional for diminishing the ability of black voters to elect candidates of their choice. The state is appealing that decision. But regardless, because of the proximity of Florida's August primary, candidates for Congress must qualify by noon on June 17th, and the courts are only considering throwing out selected districts, and time will essentially run out for Rayner. Political observers today are discussing the fate of Rayner and other diversity candidates and what they will face in the redistricting that the governor is defending. It likely could have dramatic consequences on the midterm elections this November in both Florida and in Washington. Closer to home, Rayner did announce she still intends to run for office. She was elected to the Florida legislature in 2020. She now intends to seek re-election to the Florida legislature in her House district, which was also redrawn this year, but remains safely Democratic. Rayner, what do we think?
It's heartbreaking, but what do we expect from DeSantis? It's not surprising. This behavior, I mean, it's horrible that she's a victim of this, but it's not surprising.
Yeah, political gerrymandering, I don't like it, but it's a fact of political life, and it has been in America for more than 200 years. But racially motivated gerrymandering is absolutely illegal and totally unconstitutional, except for the fact that we clearly now have a U.S. Supreme Court that is going to rubber stamp any map that comes their way as an issue.
I'm curious, Sobourney, being a person of color, you watch a face that I'm sure you can identify with, not only from being a woman and being black and being queer. What's your reaction to what you hear or say?
Honestly, it's so many feelings that are coursing through me right now. Number one, the fact that she can't run is upsetting because of what Ron DeSantis is trying to do. It is obviously racially motivated. It is trying to divide up. It's trying to divide up so that way his candidates can actually get in, and there are more Republicans instead of more Democrats, because they would go against him and what it is that he's trying to do. And she said it herself, she is his worst nightmare. And just in that clip, I felt that. I felt it 100%.
You know, for clarity to your point and Representative Rayner's point, the district, Charlie Crist's district, he's the sitting U.S. congressman in this district right now running against DeSantis for governor. In one fell swoop, the DeSantis map changed the district 11 points. 4+ for Biden to 7+ for Trump. In one fell swoop. It has nothing to do with candidates, just the profile makeup. And Jeff, I'm curious in terms of your perspective. You're the director of the National Task Force Dinner in Miami Beach in October, and the National Task Force is designed. This is core red meat for the task force. Your thoughts about what her announcement means?
First of all, her announcement makes me as well very sad. I think we don't have enough representation of LGBTQ plus people in not only the Florida legislature and in our federal government. The campaign this year that the Task Force Gala is going to support is the Queer the Vote campaign, which is going to be around motivating our community to get out and vote. And we have said it here so many times over and over again, our community is not talking about this. If you go down the street to Wilton Manors and ask them who is Michele Rayner and what happened to her today, I bet you probably only 2 out of 10 people may know that story. So find these candidates that are out there supporting our issues. You know, donate some money to her campaign, donate some money to other candidates. We may be faced right here in Broward County with having no LGBTQ plus representation out of our county. And we are, as you just stated, the seat of LGBTQ plus people, not in Florida, not in Broward, in the country. So please find these candidates, and this is very disturbing, and we need to support them.
You know, it's an amazing observation. We are dedicating a very significant amount of time at Queer News Tonight to this story, which sadly, I think you're right, maybe 20% of our community knows about, but the story is gigantic for us. We're getting ready to show you an interview. She has been interviewed with everyone in America today because of this. And she kindly said, wait, I want to talk to queer people. And of course, she's come to Queer News Tonight to discuss these dramatic changes and the issues that are being faced. We've had this interview with Florida's first out queer Black woman statewide representative. This is an amazing interview. Watch this. This is a special interview for Queer News Tonight. We now welcome State Representative Michele Rayner. Michele, welcome to Queer News Tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be back with you, Al.
I've talked to you a number of times. Every time I talk to you, I get more and more excited about where the queer world is in politics. Yesterday, let's jump right into it. Yesterday, the news was a little tough for us in watching some of the history that potentially could be made from your candidacy for U.S. Congress. We've just showed your statement. Tell us a little bit about what has happened and what's going on in Florida to have you've been working on this for a year, to make the change that you announced yesterday. Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, listen, Al, you and I have talked so many times about how we have a governor and a Republican-led legislature that is completely out of control. And we saw that with the drawing of these maps. As you well know, that 2 Black districts got cut out. So Black representation was diminished, and only because of an injunction that was filed and upheld by a Republican appointed judge, one that was appointed by Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis, do we now have one of those Black seats back. And the district, particularly I'm running in, I was running in, Black votes were packed into across the bridge into Tampa. So you have a city of St. Pete, which I know you're well familiar with, Al, that you literally split it in half, and you take part of my House district, which is majority Black, and you take it and then you move it across the bridge, which the Fair Districts Amendment said you can't do, and you pack it into a safe Democratic seat. And what we've seen with the governor and his drawing of the map is that, first off, the first introduction of this map was on Martin Luther King holiday weekend. So I don't believe it's coincidental. Other than that, there has been literally racist and partisan gerrymanders that is happening with these maps. And it makes it difficult for people to have a free and fair election when you have maps that are drawn to favor a party, to favor a Republican governor who ultimately wants to run for president and wants to be able to run on the fact that he gave the Republican Party, hopefully knock on wood, not the House, but if that should happen, that he gave them back the House.
It's let's put a fine point on the observation that you made about gerrymandering. The Florida legislature proposed a map that was vetoed by the governor. And then the governor and his staff drew up their own map and said, no, this is where the districts are going to be. And by all reports, a tremendous amount of pressure to accept that. A portion of it has been struck down by the courts already, and Florida is appealing it. But in terms of the gerrymandering observation that you make yesterday in your decision about running for the U.S. Congress, this was Charlie Crist's seat. And Charlie Crist, as everyone knows, we've reported in the story tonight that he's running for governor for the Democrats. He's former governor and was a Republican when he was a governor, and he's running for governor again, and now as a Democrat. So his seat was won, even though Donald Trump carried the state of Florida. The district that you're running for was for Biden by plus 4 points. And after the change of the redistricting from Governor DeSantis, it turns into, in the exact same election, plus Donald Trump by 7 points. That's an 11-point swing in your district. How do you explain that other than your claim of gerrymandering? What other possible observation is there?
There's no reasonable explanation, but it's gerrymandering. That's pure and simple, plain and simple. There's no other reason. The counsel for the governor was like, when he was asked a question, do you know what the partisan makeup of the district is? He said, no, I don't know. I don't know what the district is made of. I mean, Al, we're not dumb. We are far more intelligent than the governor gives us credit for. He obviously knows what the partisan makeup of this district is. That's why he drew the district the way he did. That's why he split up a city when the law says that if a county or a city can be contiguous and be held together, that is what you're supposed to do.
When you heard the news of the governor's new election map, did it? So I hear the absoluteness in your voice of the conclusion, but were you surprised when you saw, like in the congressional district that you were going to run in? Did it surprise you that it was so overwhelmingly gerrymandered?
Listen, I gotta tell you, yeah. I mean, I knew that the governor was out of control. We saw it with the Don't Say Gay. We saw it with the Stop Woke bill. We've seen it with the abortion ban. We've seen it with the transports bill. I knew he was out of control. I did not know that he was going to be blatantly illegal and try to rig an election. And really be very clear, this is about electoral college votes for him as well when he is going to try to run for president. I didn't know. And I should have known, right? And I think I kind of did in the back of my mind, but I didn't know that he was going to be this blatantly just in our faces with it. And what I've been telling people, Al, is you can't keep saying that won't happen, the worst won't happen, this won't happen. They're not going to go that far because they are doing it right now in front of our faces.
Yeah. Yesterday I was struck in a quote, and I'm getting ready to repeat it back to you for comment from you. You said, quote, "But as many of you know, we have a governor and we have a legislature that is out of control. They have drawn maps that are racist, that are partisan, and that I believe, and frankly, many people believe, are illegal. And that's what makes it difficult to have a free and fair election in Pinellas County for this congressional seat," end quote. Ooh, powerful words. You can digest those now. Any new feelings about the observation that you made there?
Listen, I stand by what I said. And the reason I think I stand by it even more, I'm sure that you will be reporting on this. The governor appointed a new Secretary of State. He appointed Corey Byrd, who is a representative that I've served with. This is the same man who has cussed at Black legislators on the House floor, who is homophobic, who is transphobic, who I believe, has racist tendencies. His wife is a QAnon supporter. They've also supported January 6th insurrectionists. And this is the man that's going to be in charge of the election police. So you can't tell me that this is not a ploy to rig an election. So whenever the person that screams the loudest about rigging an election, they're the ones that are actually doing it. And all of the malfeasance that we've seen when it comes to the elections has been found in the Republican Party. It has not been done by Democrats. It has not been done by MPAs. It's not been done by moral-minded people. And once again, Al, this is happening in front of our faces. And we have a governor that does not want to give us a free and fair election.
Representative Rayner, when you say that as clearly as you say it, and with as clearly we're watching what we're watching, it begs to ask the question, is he unstoppable? Does he basically feel that there is no control on his whim of desire and the power of the acts that the governor is wielding? Is he unstoppable?
He's unstoppable, Al, because you have a Republican legislature that bends to his whim. I've spoken to Republican leaders that knew that this map was unconstitutional, that they didn't support it initially when it was initially drawn, but said they didn't want to get primaried, said that they didn't want their budget items struck. The Senate president had a primary opponent until this was all wrapped up. And all of a sudden, now that this is wrapped up, he no longer has a primary opponent. When you have a governor that rules with an iron fist and you don't have people who stand up and say, like, we can't have this, you can't do this, he does become unstoppable. And the only way that he is not unstoppable is if folks organize, if they mobilize, they find a political home, and they vote like never before, like their lives depend on it. Because what I believe the governor and the Republican Party is doing is, as they are snatching our freedoms away, snatching them away, they're not working on affordable housing. They're not working on food desert issues. They're not working on living wages. Because if I can keep you struggling, you won't realize that I'm snatching your freedom away as you are just trying to survive. And that, I believe, is a very intentional and a very insidious way that the Republican Party is doing their policy.
I want to jump into several of those issues that you just discussed. But before I do, let's pull the Democrats right out on that hook. We have at Queer News Tonight, and in the queer community, we've talked about the they and the othering that seems to be occurring, and that we find someone that is vulnerable, they create a argument against that vulnerability, and then they use it to try to win an election. Now, we have talked about this at Queer News Tonight for a long time. Really started in 2016, actually. But the question is, the Republicans seem to be so much better at winning these marginal but ridiculous culture wars that they're setting up. And it seems like the Democrats are just getting their teeth kicked in. To all of the LGBT viewers that are watching you right now, help explain why the Democrats are not doing a better job standing up against this.
So we're family, so I'm going to be transparent. I think we play too nice. Especially think about what happened, what's the numbers look like in DC right now. If the Republicans had the numbers that we had, if they had the White House, if they had the House in a 50-50 Senate, there would be no asking for anything. There would be no trying to work with us on anything. There would be no, let's see if we can have bipartisanship. They would ram everything through. So that's number one. Number two, we don't turn the messaging back on them. Number three, Republicans knock all year, all off-cycle years. They're constantly communicating to voters, and we're not doing that. And the message of, I'm not a Republican, you should vote for me, is tired. I vote. I am a voter. I am a lifelong voter. I have voted in almost every election cycle, barring me being out of the country, and they may not have gotten my absentee ballot. I vote. And even for me, I don't want to hear that you are not a Republican, so let me vote for you. We've got to give people something to vote for. We've got to give them a vision. And that is where I feel a lot of folks are lacking. And there's not that clear, distinct vision in our party. And so for me, whatever office that I'm running for, I'm always giving people a vision, something to grasp onto, because I know that's how we got President Obama. He gave us something to believe in, and then he delivered on it. Now, he couldn't do everything, he's president, but he delivered on it. And that's the thing that I think that our issue is. We are trying to be people's friends. We are trying to play too nice. And we have people who have shown us that they are ruthless and they will deny our very humanity to get what they want.
Representative Rayner, with the observation you just made of how they do it and how the Democrats do it, use your best crystal ball, if I can ask you to do that. What's going to happen the morning after the midterms? You and you're going to be one of the first people I interview the morning after the midterms. And what's your crystal ball saying today, and what do you think you'll be saying the Wednesday after the midterm election?
Woo, Al. Oh my gosh. Wow, you really want to go here. This is a loaded question. My hope is that we will hold on to the U.S. House. My hope is that we will have a Democratic governor. My hope is that we will win more seats in the Florida legislature. That is my hope. I believe that we have got to run like never before. The pessimist in me is like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if we're going to be able to pull this off. But the hopefulness in me, the one that always wins out over the pessimist, believes that we can do it and it's not too late, but we have to work like never before. And that is my charge to folks who are running for office. That is my charge to folks who are involved in this political sphere. That is my charge to volunteers and organizers. I mean, I've told people today, listen, if you need me to come to where you are at to help you and to charge people up, and we need to put out a press release so the press will come and talk to us and we can find out what's going on. Listen, let me know. I will come. But we've got to, the very thing you have up, organize, mobilize, find a political home and vote. I'm hopeful, but we have got, to put in, we've got to swim hard to the wall until November.
One last question that relates to that and your challenge, the optimism I hear in your voice, which I appreciate. Do you see the LGBTQ community in Florida and around the country? Are they accepting the challenge? Do you see them moving in the direction?
I do. I do believe they are. I had while I was running for Congress, I was able to work very closely with the Equality PAC, and which is basically the equality LGBTQ arm of the LGBTQ caucus in Congress. So I was working very closely with Congressman Takano and Congressman Cicilline, and watching what they've done with impacting LGBTQ voters and candidates, and working with their amazing executive director, Jeff Larrabee. And there are pockets of us that are really getting it. But I want to say this, and I want to be very clear to our community. When the leaked opinion came out about the ban on abortion, they talked about same-sex marriage. They brought up Lawrence v. Texas. It is not going to stop at abortion. They are coming for us next. So we better be about our business as well. We better be concerned in making sure we elect folks who align with our values and our vision, folks who are part of our community for real, because there's a MAGA Republican running up in Pensacola who is queer, but he is a Donald Trump Republican. So just because you the Black community says, just because you skin folk don't mean you're kinfolk. And it's the same for our community. And so we've got to get serious about it, because our rights are on the line as well. Marriage is on the line. The ability to adopt children is on the line. The ability to show up and be protected in the workplace is on the line. So all of these things are on the line, and we have got to get serious. And we can't take it for granted. We thought we won because why can't get married? Marriage is the floor. It's most certainly not the ceiling. We have a long way to go.
Absolutely, heard loud and clear. I want to take a moment to talk about one of the good things that happened yesterday. You made the decision that you're going to fight to go back to the State House of Representatives, representing your district in Pinellas County. I talked to the LGBTQ world and politicians and political people in our world. You were very unusual to me. I've heard you speak a number of times. I told you, my goodness, you're a firebrand. I felt like I was in Black church in one of your speeches. You're kind of a trifecta for our community and here in Florida. You're Black, you're a woman, and you're queer. I'm curious, in making that observation that I just made to you, we've talked so much in 2022 about Don't Say Gay and the effect of what's going on and what will go on with our children and our young people and our students. It seems to me you represent everything that we want to say about gay to young people, and they're going to watch you and they're going to impression of the possibilities. So when we other someone, the other turns out to be really great. How does that wash over you, and what kind of representation do you walk through every day going, people, especially young queer women, children, are watching me? How does that wash over you?
I mean, I was raised to much is given, much is required. My mother and father, repeated that over and over in my house, right? And I would tell you, for me, I don't take it lightly. I don't take it lightly out. I was saying to someone just before we spoke that representation isn't just about I'm Black, queer, and cisgender woman. It is literally about what do you do in that space. And so I know that I am blessed to be in rooms that other folks are able to be in. So I can talk about why, for example, abortion, why it matters to women, why it matters to Black folks, and why it matters to the LGBTQ community in ways that are intersectional. And, we know, for example, LGBTQ community, we have cisgender women and we have trans men. We have non-binary folks who are able to carry children, who are able to get pregnant. So abortion is very much a part of our community. As far as Black people, Black women, we understand that Black women have been basically shackled to the foundation of this country, have never really had the self-determination to make choices about their reproductive health. And reproductive justice looks like being able to make the decision to have a child, to not have a child, and if you have that child, to have that child to be brought up in a safe and loving environment. And then obviously just as a woman, as a cisgender woman, there is a right to privacy that's enshrined in our state constitution. There's a right to privacy that I get to make choices with my doctor and with my partner. So I just talked about one issue intersectionally, right? And think about all the other things that we deal with. That if we're talking about affordable housing, if we're talking about food deserts, if we're talking about environmental justice, what does that look like? And how can I speak to those things intersectionally? So it's not just about, yes, I'm the first, and yes, I'm the only Black queer woman that has ever held public office in Florida, but most certainly in the legislature, but being able to do something with that representation. And I believe what I bring benefits everybody because, they say a rising tide lifts all boats.
Interesting. So you're running for House, it was District 70, I believe?
It's now 62. It's now 62 because we were also redistricted as well.
Yeah. Before we end, we for sure appreciate again, Representative Rayner has accepted this invitation to talk to us just almost immediately after this announcement of news. The demands on her today from national media are great, and so we really appreciate you supporting queer media. We think that's important. Yes. I want to remind our viewers of something else that you said yesterday, and then I want to ask you to comment on it. You said, quote, "We're going to take our fight back to Tallahassee," meaning now we're going back to Tallahassee. Many of you know that I've recently been called Ron DeSantis' worst nightmare. I am his worst nightmare because I speak truth to power, I hold him accountable, and I fight for the people. And that's what I am going to continue to do in the State House, end quote. Powerful words there, and I'm sure the governor heard that Michele Rayner is coming back.
Yeah, I don't think he's happy. I will tell you, and I think I've shared this with you, Al. There was a time when we were in the, vaccine distribution phase, and there was all of the controversy with the governor giving vaccines to, his supporters. And I was doing interview after interview after interview. And his legislative affairs director at the time called me and said, listen, your tweets and your interview, they're really hurting the governor's feelings. And I just started laughing. I was like, what's hurting my feelings? That the people that I serve aren't able to have access to vaccines. The people that I serve are disproportionately affected by COVID. So when you can get a COVID site in my district or in a district that folks are being disproportionately affected by COVID, then I'll stop doing interviews. How about that? And later that afternoon, I had a COVID site in my district.
Oh, interesting. I have to ask you in conclusion to your decision on what you're going to do next, specifically about the LGBTQ community. It seems like we're watching, in many ways, a clash of titans, fighting at a field level that is far beyond most of us in the LGBTQ community over issues that are beyond what we feel is our direct control. And I have noticed at Queer News Tonight, when we do focus conversations in varieties of different ways, the preeminent issue that seems to always come out, and has for many, many, many months, almost all of 2022, in the LGBTQ plus community, because of all of the attacks, historic issues of attack, both in Florida and nationally, the reaction seems to be overwhelmingly fear. And the fear in the LGBTQ plus community is uncertainty and the unknown, and why is this happening, and why are we being formulated as attack and culture wars, etc. Your decision yesterday to withdraw your candidacy for U.S. Congress, return to the State House, what would you say to the LGBTQ community in terms of the fear that they have, that they're exhibiting, and what would you tell them about what we're watching and what they should do next?
I would tell our family that I understand, that I am very clear why you are afraid. I understand that you don't know what you're going to wake up to in the next day or next day after the day after. But I will tell you this, that as long as there is breath in my body, that I will fight with us and for us. And while you are scared and while you are uncertain, this is the time that we cannot back down. We cannot, take our foot off the gas. We cannot stop pressing forward for the things that we need to live equitable lives. And so I would ask our family to join me, to trust me, and to, as you have up there, organize, mobilize, find a political home, and to vote. And know that as long as there's breath in my body, and quite certainly, and quite frankly, my wife's body, that we will stand and fight with you, and we will be with you. And that's what I would say.
And well said it was. We really appreciate the time that you've given us today, Representative Rayner. This is a very important subject, and the subject matter is not really ultimately so much about you, but of what is going on in our world. We remind all of our viewers, you are listening to the first out queer Black woman that represents in the state House for the state of Florida. Michele Rayner, Representative Michele Rayner, thank you very much for being with us at Queer News Tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I always come when you call, Al, so thank you so much.
Thank you. LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies